Well, good afternoon, everybody. I believe it's the hour that we were going to try to get this thing going, but welcome to our House Study Committee meeting on reducing and prioritizing mandates in our public schools. I want to thank you all for attending today, and especially the members. I know many of you drove a little ways to get here, but Representative Persinger, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself, and we'll just kind of go around and work our way back.
Sure. Holt Persinger, District 119, which is Barrow County and Jackson County.
Robert Dawson, I represent Coweta and Fulton counties.
Mitchell Horner, Catoosa County.
Bethany Ballard, and I've got Houston and Peach counties. I live about 7 miles up the road.
You got
Did I get it? Good working there. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Chris Irwin. I represent Northeast Georgia, which is Jackson, Banks, Stevens, and Habersham County. And I'm the chairman of education, and just proud of Chairman Blackman and what he has decided to do here and take a look at this so that we can make a difference for our young people here in this state.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, we've got a pretty packed agenda, so, my introductions will be brief. I just wanted to thank a couple of superintendents that are in attendance. Dr. Bullard, is that right, from Twiggs County is here, and then from Candler County, Dr. Longrear is also here. Before I hand it over to Dr. Rogers, who is our superintendent, but I just personal privilege, and I hope this is okay with our local folks, but having been a student in Houston County schools, my grandmother many moons ago actually taught right here at Lindsay when it was still an elementary school. So especially special, if you will, to be back here for this meeting here today. So thank you so much for hosting us. Appreciate you and your team. We enjoyed lunch, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say, Dr. Rogers.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here with you all, and I'm very excited now to know that Shaw's grandmother taught in this building. And this is one thing we're going to talk about today. So we're excited we're purposefully hosting you here in the Lindsay Student Support Center, and we'll share the why behind that in just a little bit. I am Ricky Rogers. I'm proud to be the superintendent of Houston County. I want to welcome you here to this school district. And we really, when you think about innovation, I'm just proud of our team. And this past year, we actually named a Chief Innovation Officer because we are focused on innovation in Houston County. But let me tell you a little bit about our district. First of all, we always begin with our mission. Our mission in Houston County is to produce high achievement for all through continuous growth. We emphasize that word all because it's not about just for the students, but it's the staff, the leaders, the teachers, everyone needs to be growing. And I personally feel if you're not growing, you're getting behind, because time's changing so much and innovation requires growth. So we live by that mission. Secondly, our vision is to be the standard for world-class education. And I could capitalize the word "the" there. Not a standard, but the standard. And to be world-class, to have that standard, we need innovation. And that's why we're here today. We have a theme each year. I'm very excited about our theme this year. It's very purposeful. It's about together we can. And when I was reflecting on that theme, my commitment to our teachers and administrators this year is together we can encourage and support one another. It's about the relationship piece. It's about the people. But when you look around this room, together we can cut red tape and innovate and give these students the skills they need for this ever-changing world society that we're in. I mean, think about it. Who would have thought how big AI is today? How do we prepare students for that? Well, it's not in the testing and bubbles ABCD. It's in the creativity and critical thinking. And so today's about innovation. Here's a little bit about our district real fast. We are the 12th largest in the state of Georgia. We're right at 31,000 students. When we pulled the numbers, we're approximately 200 students today larger than we were this day last year. You can look at the different language spoken, military affiliated. We have a 74% economically disadvantaged student population here in Houston County. We have 38 schools, 3 programs, our Career Academy we're very proud of, our WIN Academy, and our Houston Virtual program. And our 4-year cohort graduation rate, very proud of this, 91.2%, but we will not stop till that's all. And but we're glad the direction that's going in. And you know how we innovate. So I'd like to give you a quick 10,000-foot figure or idea of these 3 items, and then we're going to have the experts come up and talk about them. Number 1 is elementary computer science and STEM. You know, computer science STEM teachers are not directly funded by the state of Georgia. You know, typically an elementary school has an art teacher, a music teacher, and PE. Well, we were creative this year. We decided, you know, we have to place more students in PE, and typically we have a parapro in there. Well, when we've had parapros retire or move to another position, we took the funding that we would have applied to those parapros, and we actually hired a computer science STEM teacher for those elementary schools. And we're at 6 schools right now, very excited about it. You're going to hear from one of those teachers today, and just very proud of what they're accomplishing because, guys, computer science STEM begins in kindergarten level, and we've got to make sure we're getting that. And it took an innovative model for us to begin that this year. Also, you are sitting in what used to be Lindsay Elementary School that Representative Blackman's grandmother taught at, and now we are the Lindsay Student Support Center. You know, we were having some population shift in our county, and we were like, what can we do to take care of this community? Because it's about taking care of all, and it's about meeting the needs of the whole child. And that's what we're proud of about the Lindsay Student Support Center. That's why we're meeting here today, is because we give away food here. We have a food bank. We have clothes, technology. You know, we'll send a registrar here to register students if needed. We will do what's needed for the family because at the end of the day, it's about taking care of the child and their family so they can innovate and be successful in our school district. So this was something we started a couple years ago, and you're going to hear more about it. But we're excited about what we've accomplished here, and we're glad to have you sitting here at our Lindsay Student Support Center. Next, we have our Houston STEM and Career Academy. This will actually open August of 2027, but we're already preparing for it. And we also want to thank the state for allotting some money to this. But the STEM Academy is about hitting the needs of the workforce for Houston County. We've got Robins Air Force Base in this community. We've got to make sure we're preparing students for that. We've got Emory Hospital here. We've got to make sure we're preparing students in the healthcare industry. So it's about forward thinking and having a program that's going to give this community the needs the workforce they need to be successful. In our next Z-Splosh, we're going to actually move the Houston College and Career Academy over to the STEM Academy. So this is going to be the Houston STEM and Career Academy, and it's going to take a regional approach where it supports all the counties in this region, because at the end of the day, it's about the success of Middle Georgia and the region as a whole. So these are the 3 you're going to hear more about today. I just want to thank you so much for being here. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sonia Kiefer. Come on up.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers, and thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Sonia Kiefer, and I'm the very proud principal of Lake Joy Primary School, located here in Warner Robins in the Houston County School District. So we are here to say that we are building the future one young innovator at a time. And at Lake Joy Primary School, we serve students in pre-K through 2nd grade. Approximately 650 students, all day, every day. Little ones, we love them. We are so excited to launch a new computer science with STEM infusion special area class this year. We serve 120 students. Those students are engaged daily in computer science and STEM infusion class. It is a special area rotation, so we provide PE, art, music, and computer science and STEM now. We have a dedicated computer science classroom and STEM lab, which we'll share some more information on that in just a few moments. And I do also want to draw attention to the fact that we have students who have very diverse learner profiles. So we will share a little more about those students and what they are doing in this special computer science and STEM class. So first, through all things, we wanted to talk about our vision of innovation. And this is a very important point, which is for us, our vision is that every child receives computer science and STEM instruction. It's very important in this day and age and into the future. Beginning in primary grades, students will have early exposure to coding, robotics, engineering. And we also want to integrate those ELA standards, math standards, science standards, all in this computer science and STEM class. The focus is on problem solving, collaboration, and creativity. And we all know how important that is for our students to learn from a very early age, because these are the students who will be entering our workforce in later years. So our vision is also to introduce students to careers in STEM and in computer science. So bringing the vision to life. So it's great to have a vision, but to bring the vision to life for a school administrator takes a lot of thought, a lot of support from our district. It takes a lot of planning with highly creative and talented teachers. And it also takes a huge investment from our community. And our community 100% backs computer science and STEM in our schools, especially in elementary education. So we had an investment from our school district and community in resources and time to renovate an formerly old computer, what would be a stagnant computer lab, into this innovative computer science and STEM room. So that renovation took lots of work, lots of planning to make sure the flooring was right to allow for robots to roll across the floor. And we also had support from, Flint Energy's grant, Full Steam Ahead, Middle Georgia STEM Alliance, and others. So the main point here is that our community backs this 100% and is excited to see us grow. So I'm going to turn it over to Miss Merrill, who will tell us what these students are doing in the classroom.
Hi there, my name is Megan Merrill. I'm the very proud computer science teacher at Lakejoy Primary School. I want to jump right in and show you what our students are doing just in these first few weeks of school. We've had so much fun in this class together. They're coding with robots, testing designs, and solving critical problems. No matter what the tool is that I put into their hands, they are building, experimenting, creating. I'd venture to say they're thriving. One of the most important things that we have done is that we're using the state of Georgia computer science K-2 standards, where we're really building that accurate technology at this very early, the vocabulary at this very early age. They grab it faster than we do. It's quite amazing. One of the things that I'm most passionate about is that my classroom is a place where students can come, where risk-taking is acceptable, mistake-making is acceptable, because risk-taking and making mistakes is really how we grow. In these pictures here, you'll see students collaborating, building, and using even robots at the bottom of the screen. Our first lesson that we teach is on collaboration, because most kids are mine, and want to just do by themselves, but they have really already come so far with that mindset. We really, like I just said, see that innovation in action with this early exposure. We are working on building problem solvers from the ground up, because as grown-ups, we know that that's a critical skill. Why does this matter? Because technology is part of everybody's future. It's growing faster than we can even keep up with, so giving them this piece is critical. One of the things that I'm most passionate about is that we're not just teaching computer science, but that we're also infusing that STEM instruction, not taught in isolation. They get a little bit of computer science, they get a little bit of STEM, and they're seeing how it is together. The big picture here is that we're growing innovation mindsets in both students and teachers. You'll see our sweet little learners here. The kid at the bottom drew a picture of what he would look like if he was a computer scientist one day. And then again, you see kids working together, collaborating, and building and growing. We innovate in two different ways. A lot of times when we think about innovation, we think about digital innovation, because we're a digital world. And so in this video, you're going to see my students working with a robot that's called Dash. He's built for early learners. Not only are they programming here, but they are building code, seeing why it doesn't work, problem solving, trial and error, until they get it right. So next we're going to look at what's almost more important is innovating unplugged. Regardless of the tool that we put in their hands, or as they would call it, a toy, they are innovating, they're growing as collaborative members of a group, and it's really not about the tool that we're putting in their hands, it's what we're teaching them about being critical thinkers, collaborators, and kids that like to work together. So you're going to see some innovation unplugged here. As you can see, those tools are critical to their building of that thinking. Who benefits from this? My favorite part is looking at the benefits. It's benefited me, it benefits students, it benefits teachers. When we were asked to talk about innovation, I was like, what does that mean? Like, what does innovation mean? And I asked our students what it meant to be innovators and inventors. And so we're going to see a little video of these students and what they think it means to be inventors.
Kids can be inventors by being creative, by thinking about stuff to make for other kids to have fun with them. By learning about the stuff that they need to learn first, and by being very creative, and by using their brain, and being unique, and just being themselves.
So as you can see, our students benefit. They're receiving early tech literacy from a very early age. They're more confident than I am. If I ask them what's hard, they're like nothing. But we're really building their confidence as problem solvers and innovators. And like Dr. Kiefer mentioned, we have students with so many diverse learner profiles, and really giving that equitable access for all students to come to the computer science lab. For teachers, we've seen a huge shift in building facilitators instead of just instructors, and building that capacity for that innovative mindset. How can I see this working in my classroom on a daily basis? All right, so why is this innovative? I think the innovation comes from the computer science and STEM integration, where they're not being taught separate. Students are practicing, like I've said, problem solving. The most important thing is that they're going to test it, they're going to fail, and they're going to retry. And being there for them as they go through that process is so fun. We are teaching them to collaborate together, working in teams, and I must talk about creativity a lot because they all said that. So designing unique solutions to hard situations. We're going to see one of my students here talking about his experience when he had some challenges working with a robot and what he did.
So yesterday, we explored the robots, we explored it, we played with them, and pretty much, yeah. We made it to a few animations, we made it to a floor chapter, and we made it really fast. How to code, putting down the pieces and explain if it wasn't hard, to make it easy.
So I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Kiefer as she explains kind of our vision for the future in computer science and STEM education at the very earliest ages.
So looking forward to our vision for the future, we hope to share just how we innovated, and I hope that this comes across that we truly believe that every child should continue to receive computer science and STEM instruction. Some of the other goals that we have is to integrate with art, music, PE, and even media center, so some of these other special areas. We also envision Lego and robotics competitions for our young children and expanding our partnerships. We truly believe that these children are the future, and the future is here right now, and together we can build a network of innovation. And we know that in order to work together and build a network of innovation, it takes us all working together. I alluded to this earlier at the beginning of the presentation, which is when we were in the initial planning stages, one thing kept coming up is how can we innovate? How can we be flexible? So flexibility is really important in the life of a school administrator. When we look at projects, we look at the big project, we think, wow, this is great, this is amazing, our kids need this, our communities want this. And so the next step that we do is we look at what are the rules, what are the regulations, what are the policies. And so one thing that came to mind in our journey, which was in order to get this STEM in order to get computer science in, we had to look at our specials rotations, and we had to look at, we have art, music, PE. There is, one of the statutory background here is that there is a PE time requirement. And so that played a huge part in how we structured our specials, our rotations, how many minutes, how many hours. We were calculating by hand with calculators how to do this. And so one of the things is we're teaching our students flexibility and innovation, and we had to be really flexible with how we did this, got this computer science classroom going. But one thing that really does help support us administratively is flexibility with the regulations, with the laws, with all of these things so that we can move forward with innovation, and so that we are not stalled out trying to calculate the little details, the little minutes, which don't have anything to do with the students and their needs. One other area that we also thought about in doing this presentation and our success with the students is the ages of our students. In a primary school, we have students pre-K through second grade. Currently, under Georgia law, students must be 5 years old by the time when they come to school by September 1st. And so some of the actual work that we are doing is very complex, and it requires students to be ready for school. The school calendar year is beginning earlier, and many schools in the state of Georgia come to school earlier. And so for many of us, we have 4-year-olds for a month. We have 5-year-olds in first grade for a month. And so just keeping with that flexibility in mind of keeping up with the times to make sure that we are in alignment with what we want to do for the future for our students. So thank you very much for letting us share this with you. We are so excited to now bring up Miss Bonnie Brown, who is going to come up here and share some more information about the Lindsay Student Support Center.
That was great. Dr. Rogers, and I know I'm kind of backing up just a little bit here, but one of the things that when we spoke, I challenged, he and his team, who do a wonderful job here in Houston County, we're blessed with wonderful educators, is to find some ways in which we could do some things that are more innovative and allow for best practices to be, kind of filter up to the top and shared and across the state. So thank you. Is it Dr. Kiefer? Yes, thank you, and Dr. Merrill. Miss Merrill, that's fine, wonderful job. If it's okay, when y'all get through, we may open it up for the members to ask a few questions, if that's all right. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I certainly hope you are enjoying your time here at the Lindsay Student Support Center. I can truly say that I am honored and blessed to serve as the coordinator for student services who oversees the programming of this campus. So the Lindsay Student Support Center did not happen overnight. About 4 years ago, our board truly saw the need to provide supports for students and families. As Dr. Rogers said, when the numbers here at Lindsay Elementary School dropped, we just had the idea to open the Lindsay Student Support Center. That took a lot of homework. It took a lot of research. We did a survey of over 15,000 responses. That includes students and parents. And we just got a lot of feedback. That feedback really helped to guide the spaces in this building, but also the programming that we offer here, not only for students, but for parents and the community. So we are super excited with the work that we do. It is a collaborative effort between the Lindsay Student Support Center, our school social workers, our Georgia Parent Mentor, our Family Engagement Liaison, and our community partners. We could not do the work that we do here at Lindsay without those supports. All of the programming that is provided at Lindsay is free of cost to students and families. So we are not asking parents to pay for classes. We're not asking them to pay for summer camps. We just work hard, and we get so many things donated to our center, and just the hard work with the staff that's here to really make this a success. So our motto here at Lindsay is together we can uplift, connect, and grow. Together we build the future, supporting students, families, and community through partnerships and resources. And you're probably hearing out in the hallway our resources going on right now. Our food pantry's open and our resource room's open, so we have lots of families that are going to be trickling in and out of this building to take advantage of those resources. So we offer a lot of different programming here at Lindsay, a lot of different spaces that are available. We have comprehensive programs that we work on between Family Engagement and our Parent Mentor. We provide after-school classes and workshops for students, such as Healthy Cooking, which is sponsored by Emory Hospital. We have Wacky STEM Science, which is sponsored by UGA Extension. And I teach a sewing class, which I absolutely love. I only teach kids, I don't teach adults, but I just absolutely love it. And we got these resources by applying for different grants that are available. We offer parent classes such as financial literacy and parenting the challenging child, which our families are taking advantage of. We just have lots of needs. We offer, again, those summer camps free of charge for our students, and those are sponsored by groups such as Emory Hospital, UGA Extension. We have different horticulture groups that come in, and then, of course, like our librarians taught literacy, arts and crafts this summer, just so many things that we have to offer. We have a literacy center. Kids can come in and they can check out a book. They can keep the book if they want to keep it. We get lots of things donated. Of course, our food pantry and resource room, our technology lab, for those parents that don't have access to technology at home, they can come in here and access those resources free of charge at Lindsay. If you need something notarized, you can come here and get something notarized. Some families don't have the $5 it costs to get something notarized at Office Depot, so it's the little things that we try to do to help our families. We are also home to the championship-winning Houston County Sharks, which is our adaptive sports program. Their gym and their locker room is just phenomenal. In fact, if you guys are interested, I would love to give you a tour because this is just a great, innovative space that we take advantage of every inch of this campus. So our impact has been pretty big. We're excited about our impact. Last year, we served over 10,000 individuals. 10,000 people accessed this center, which is just remarkable. We hosted multiple events, Houston County events and Lindsay-sponsored events, 55 community events. Our community partners are accessing this space. It's a phenomenal space for a lot of our nonprofits that do not have a space to work out of can come here and do their so much needed work for our communities. We had over 600 families access our food pantry last year. With the cost of food, it's just been a tremendous resource for our families. We could not do it without sponsorship from our partners. The United Way has sponsored our food bank, and we in turn are working with Middle Georgia Community Food Bank to offer good, nutritious food to our families. We've had over 270 families access our resource room, getting anything from clothing to shoes to housewares. Unfortunately, we have families in our community that suffer tragedies, have flooding in their homes or have fires in their home, and our social workers work really hard. We partner with them to help fill those gaps in the things that they need until they can get back on their feet. Between our parent mentor and our family engagement liaison, they have supported over 900 families to provide classes, anything from, again, parenting the challenging child to understanding the IEP, just lots of resources there. Out of the needs assessment that we did, one thing that came up over and over again was access to health care, things such as vision care, just basic health care, dental care. It came up over and over again for our families. So what we decided to do was to put together a comprehensive health just resource for our families. So we developed Houston Cares. We partner with Houston County Health Department. We sponsor with Trinity School of Medicine, Central Georgia Technical College, trying to think, Houston Healthcare, now Emory. We partner with those partners to come in and provide eye exams, vision screenings, hearing screenings, health screenings. The health department was here on site for items that they caught or arose, medical conditions that we were able to help families get treated right away. Middle Georgia Community Action Agency was here to provide resources to reasonable, low-cost or no-cost medications for families that needed it. That event is an annual event, but we decided that we needed something more ongoing, so we partnered with the Houston County Health Department, and we have a monthly clinic that is available to families to treat basic care needs. We also found that just access to vision care was a significant need in our community. We have lots of families that have access to Medicaid, but the vision benefit, there are no providers in our area that actually take the Medicaid benefit. Families are having to travel to Atlanta to be able to use that Medicaid benefit. So we partnered with VSP Eyes of Hope. They came in and did a 2-day vision clinic for families. We had over 140 patients that went through and got eye screenings, eye exams, and of those 140 individuals, we had 108 adults and children walk away with glasses because they made the glasses on site, and for those special prescriptions that they could not fill, they sent them off and they came back. So if you needed trifocals or bifocals, whatever you needed, they were able to fill that need, and this was 100% free of charge to our families. And we're super excited. They've told us they want to come back next year, and I'm like, okay, last year you gave us 2 days. Can we now have 3? Maybe 4. We'll take it. So we could not do the work that we do here at the center without our partners. We have many generous partners. In fact, before I walked in this room, I learned that Morris Bank is donating 3 washers and dryers so that we can set up a laundromat for those families that need access to running hot water and just those resources to do their laundry. Those simple things that, we just think is always there. It's not available for some of our families. So we're just super excited about the work that we do at Lindsay. It's invaluable. I know that I've talked to many families, and for some, we are one of the main sources for food for them. And just thinking about that, the work that we do and the resources that we have available in this county and we make available through the center is just phenomenal. So we've made significant strides by cutting through the red tape here. It empowers our families. It allows us to deliver innovative programs and meaningful supports for our families. This flexibility has been a catalyst for progress here at the center and within our district, but there's more that we can do. So to continue advancing student-centered solutions, it's time that we take a closer look at the constraints imposed by Title 20 mandates. Revisiting these regulations could unlock even greater potential, allowing us to respond more swiftly and more effectively to the evolving needs of our students in our schools. While suicide prevention training has its place, it's time to shift our primary focus toward direct hands-on support for students in crisis. We provide hands-on support here at the Lindsay Student Support Center, and it is invaluable. The presence of qualified mental health counselors on our campuses would be very beneficial. It's really essential. These professionals can offer timely intervention, personalized care, and a safe space for students to process their struggles before they escalate. Having somebody there in place to provide that support is just necessary. By investing in direct mental health services, we move from reactive education to proactive care. This approach ensures that students aren't just going through things alone. We know how to spot those problems, and we can actually put the supports in place to help those students get through the struggles that they are enduring. This is the way in the future that we need to move to, bringing that direct mental health provision and support to our students. And I would like to turn it over to Dr. Elgin Mayfield, who's going to talk to us about more innovation. Thank you.
My name is Elgin Mayfield. It is my privilege to serve as the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning for the Houston County School District. And I have the honor today to talk to you about the Houston STEM and Career Academy that is coming to Warner Robins and Houston County. The great thing about this is, although the students at Houston County, of course, will benefit, they're not alone in that benefit. This will serve as a regional hub for STEM and career excellence. We're going to invite students from other districts to participate in this endeavor with us. This will be preparing students for those high-demand careers that we are always hearing from our community leaders, like Robins Air Force Base, that they need more of. And we're hearing from our colleges that our students are not quite prepared in such and such a way. And this is our answer to how we can make sure that our students are indeed college and career ready. And these, of course, include, this academy, of course, includes partnerships with higher ed and industry. There's multiple pathways that we're going to be offering at the STEM Academy. We have cybersecurity, healthcare and allied health sciences, robotics and advanced manufacturing, and engineering, design, and innovation. I'd like to tell you just a little bit more about these pathways. While I point out cybersecurity, because that is something that Robins Air Force Base is telling us they need so desperately right now is cybersecurity, it is more than that. It is game design. It is IT. It is computer science. It is things that I don't even understand. Artificial intelligence programming. I don't understand how that works, but I know these kids do, and I know they're going to be working with that. Under healthcare and allied health services, we're going to be working with Emory to help us make sure that we're getting these kids ready to help in the healthcare industry. Right now at our Career Academy, we have a CNA program, a Certified Nursing Assistant program, but we're going to expand that to EMT, for EMR, for phlebotomy, for radiology, for dialysis. And we're going to be teaching these kids how to do these things right here at the STEM Academy, and they might even be coming out with associate's degrees and certifications so that they are really workforce ready, walking out of what would be considered their high school experience. Under robotics and advanced manufacturing, we're talking about things like mechatronics. We're talking about true robotics. One of the features of this academy will be the STEM Gym, which is going to be hosting robotics competitions. And we're going to be hosting a thing called drone soccer. Didn't even know what that was till I looked it up one day. It's really pretty cool. If you've not heard of it, I suggest you take a minute, YouTube it. It's pretty exciting stuff. And of course, under engineering, design, and innovation, we're going to be helping students to know how to design the future. Because, guys, it's not 1985, it's not 1994, and we can't live in that world. These children are entering a world right now that we could not comprehend 10 years ago, and it is evolving quickly. And this academy is designed to evolve with that. Speaking of college readiness, very proud of the Houston Accelerated Scholars Program. It is already in existence. We are in our second year of this program. However, it will be moving over to the STEM Academy when it is opened in August of 27. But one of the great things is it will continue to expand. These are advanced math and science classes that are designed for the highest achieving echelon of students. This is a combination of AP work and dual enrollment coursework with different universities. Right now, we're calling that APDE. And I tell you, if you need an acronym, I got some for you. In education, we're really good at that. But we have that advanced placement, dual enrollment, guaranteeing kids college credit for these courses. And this really is college readiness at the highest level. As the students matriculate up, I'm just going to tell you a few of the classes that seniors will be taking as they work through this program. As a senior, they would be taking in math, multivariable calculus, and linear algebra, which is a first or second year class at Georgia Tech. And under physics, they would be taking AP Physics, Advanced Robotics, Advanced Physics, Principles in Robotics, or Environmental Physics. These are not classes typically offered in the high school environment, and we would not be able to do them in our traditional high schools because there wouldn't be enough students at any one high school to make that happen. But when we combine our high schools and send them to a program, we have plenty of students who can handle these extremely rigorous courses. And it is our intent that when students leave these courses, they're not headed to a mediary university before they can go to where they had intended to go. If that student wants to go to Caltech or MIT, they are eligible for that program as they graduate from high school. The Accelerated Scholars Program is a major leap forward in the Middle Georgia area, and we're very proud of that innovation. The student experience at the STEM Academy will be very hands-on. It will not be traditional learning where you sit in a desk and a teacher lectures to you. It will all be project-based learning. So they will be building, they will be creating, they will be innovating daily. They will earn, as I stated, industry certifications and internships, and they will be doing this in truly state-of-the-art labs that have modern equipment that will need to be updated regularly to keep up with the changing times. But one of the things that we are really excited about with this program, the STEM, the HASP, all of that, is that students will remain enrolled in their home high school. And what that means is if you are a student at Warner Robins High School, you will graduate from Warner Robins High School. You will participate in Warner Robins High School, but part of your day, you will go to the STEM Academy and take classes at the STEM Academy. But that way, you are still connected to Warner Robins High School. You are still part of that wonderful student body, and you still get to participate in the student activities that are offered at Warner Robins High School. We couldn't do work like this on our own. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. We have multiple partnerships that we're working with technical colleges and universities in the area, with regional hospitals and healthcare providers, of course, with Robins Air Force Base, and then in addition to that, local business and industry partners. We need all of these voices to make sure that we are offering courses that will help our students to be ready for the future. We don't want to train a student for a job that will not be there when they graduate high school. We want to make sure that we're training them for their next step in their career, and we are supporting the local industry, making sure that our students are going to be able to provide the services that they need. As I stated, this is going to be a regional academy. The students in that blue circle, they're going to be eligible to come here. They're going to be eligible to participate in the STEM Academy. It's going to expand opportunity across the entire Middle Georgia area. It strengthens our local workforce pipeline. I was at a meeting earlier this morning with an engineer for Robins Air Force Base, and he said they just hired, these are the numbers, 22 engineers, 4 were from Middle Georgia. 18 were from other places in the world and in the country. Guys, we need to turn that around. It should be out of 22, 18 are coming from Middle Georgia and 4 from other places. And to do that, we need to make sure that we're preparing our students for that. And of course, anytime you raise the educational level of your community, it's going to attract investment from other industries. They're going to want to put their families here, and they're going to want to be a part of the Middle Georgia community. But again, this can't happen with just us. We need your support. We need continued investment in facilities and equipment. Something like this isn't going to be a one-time deal. It is changing too quickly. What we put in the building today will be obsolete in 6 years. We know that. This computer that I'm working on today, I got yesterday. The computer it replaced, I got 3 years ago. This is over twice as fast, smaller, and has better technology than my computer did in 3 years. Yes, this is going to be a continued investment. We need a legislative partnership to ensure policy alignment, which is what we're talking about today, and of course funding for this program, and community engagement to champion the Academy's mission. Because just like Dr. Rogers said, and it's been echoed by everybody who's been up here, together we can meet the needs of all. If you want to be an entrepreneur, we can meet your needs. If you want to work on Robins Air Force Base, we can meet your needs. If you want to go to MIT, Caltech, Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, we can meet your needs. If you want to work for Emory Healthcare, we can meet your needs. That's what we want to do, and that's what we're striving to do. So let me get a little bit into how you can help. It is very difficult to innovate when you're handcuffed. We are right now handcuffed to an assessment system. Everything we do, we have to measure against. How will this hurt our Georgia milestone scores? Because, guys, we can hem and haw and we can say everything is based on one test. There is too much emphasis on one singular test given across 1 week at the end of the school year. Those children come to school 180 days. And from my perspective, there's only 3 that matter. And that's the days we do the testing. There is too much emphasis on standardized testing. I want to tell you a quick story from an anesthesiologist who I have a lot of respect for here in town. He finished at Mercer University. He was applying to med school, and he had to take a 3-hour test to go to med school. He passed the test, became an anesthesiologist, good friend of mine here in town. He's walking the halls with me at the school I was principal of, and he said, how is it that I had to take a 3-hour test to determine if I was smart enough to go to med school, but my 3rd grader has to take a 4-hour test across 2 days to determine if he's smart enough for 4th grade? If that doesn't hit you that there's a problem, let's talk afterwards. There's a problem, and we need to adjust this. If we can't adjust that, we need to at least look at what's called gate grades, and this is OCGA 283. Gate grades are in 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade, and what they say is that if you do not pass milestones in 3rd grade in reading, 5th grade and 8th grade in reading and math, that you can't go to the next grade level. I've been an educator. This is my 31st year in education. I have never, and I know of no one who would ever hold a child back in retention off 1 data point. If they have proved proficiency in the classroom and they did not prove proficiency on that test, no one is retaining them. But we have to put on their report card, retained. We have to set up meetings during the summer, call the teacher in off contract, bring the parents in who are mad as wet hens. Bring in all these people, upset the child for no reason, just to overturn what was a made decision before it even happened, guys. No educator would dare retain a child on 1 data point. Please consider changing 283. And finally, House Bill 217, extending the dual enrollment program. This is commonly called DAP. This legislation was done absolutely just like all legislation with the best of intentions, but there are some unintended consequences under this one that need to be considered. First of all, we need to consider the fact that you're now going to hold school districts accountable for students that are not in their school district. An example of this would be someone who is attending the DAP program for CGTC. They are not stepping foot in Houston County School District. Let's say they were a student in Houston County High School's zone. They never step foot in Houston County High School. They go to Central Georgia Tech, and they are participating in the DAP program, and they fail out of the DAP program at Central Georgia Tech. They are reported as a failure for Houston County High School under this legislation. I have no problem with accountability, but I want to have control over what I'm accountable for. Guys, we know that you are doing what you believe is the absolute best for our school district, and Shaw, thank you so much for this opportunity to bring some of these things to light. And there are more things we want to discuss, but these were 3 that if you couldn't tell I'm a little passionate, they are very near and dear to my heart because I love education, and I love what I do, and I love children. and I want to see us all do the best thing for them every single day. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Chris Brown, to talk about a few other things that we should be considering.
You can definitely tell he's passionate, can't you? Great job, Dr. Mayfield. And I just want to also say thank you for the opportunity to have this audience with you guys, and for you to take what we're saying back to your colleagues and see what we can do in public education to cut the red tape and to loosen us up so that we can be more innovative. And I want to just thank Representative Horner and Persinger for sitting with me at lunch today. I enjoyed our conversation that we had, and I felt like we connected really well there at lunch. So the first one I want to focus on, just building on what Dr. Mayfield talked about. You know, ideally, we will get away from these milestones that cause a lot of stress. I have 3 kids, ages 14, I just forgot my oldest, 11 and 9. They're in 9th grade, 6th grade, and 4th grade. And I can tell you, during these testing time frames, our home changes. The stress level goes up. It's lots of tears at nights, lots of fears of failing, but yet they've worked all year long to get to that point. And it's pretty intense on them. So I do wish that we could change that. But once again, if that's something that will take some time, there is another component of this high-stakes testing that comes with the TIM and the LIM. You know, currently, teachers are evaluated by the growth of their students, which, once again, as Dr. Mayfield said, we believe in accountability. We also believe in support. Those two go hand in hand. Accountability and support go hand in hand. And so it's important for us to look at what are we doing to our teachers. You know, there's a big initiative in the state of Georgia about teacher satisfaction and climate and culture of our schools. And this is an area where we can make some improvements, in my opinion, when we look at the TIM and the LIM piece of this. We have teachers that have no impact on what is learned in a science classroom or ELA classroom that is being given a rating of growth based upon what the schools is. So we would just ask that we look at a more balanced approach, one that does preserve accountability, because there must be. We're talking about kids here. We're talking about their futures here. We have to be held accountable, and we're not afraid of accountability. But we want to look at an approach that improves satisfaction and helps retain those quality teachers well into their careers so that they're not leaving us right after they get started. Oops, I think I went ahead a slide. The next thing I want to talk about is the QBE formula. Let me be clear. We're not asking for an overhaul, okay? This is a model, a formula that has served the state of Georgia, the great state of Georgia, for almost 40 years. But when you look at the funding formula here, it is rooted in the mid-1980s. It is a formula that, when you look at a few practical examples I'm going to show you in a few minutes, is quite outdated and does not keep up with the pace of technology and the rising personnel costs that we have here in our school districts. And so we ask that you guys take a look at this and ways that you can improve these. And let me give you some practical examples. So if you'll look with me on the base instructional salary over here. Sick leave for 8 days. School districts receive $150 for 8 days. That's an average of $18.75. I just mentioned I had 3 kids. I don't want a sub that's willing to do this work for $18.75 while they're there. They've got to have more. We, as a school district, need additional funding to continue to retain those quality subs. In addition to that, if you'll look over here to central administration, we're a large school district. You heard from Dr. Rogers, we're pushing 31,000 students. And in order to provide payroll and pay our 4,500 employees that we have, it takes more than one accountant in that world. But look at what the accountant's salary is. It's only $26,000 for that accountant. And as you guys know, salary costs are a lot higher than that. Our secretaries, you know, this is all based upon the school size. Secretaries, we earn $17,452. For assistant principals over here in the middle school, these are just examples. We earn $52,773. A beginning teacher in Houston County, fresh out of college with a T4, is $51,500. So we're a little lopsided here. And if you think about the classified personnel that we have to pay state health insurance for, that's just over $22,000 that we're paying for those individuals. So go back to that secretary example. We're not even getting enough money to cover the health insurance costs for those individuals. And they play a vital role. You ask anybody that's been in the school, who runs the school? Secretaries run that school. They do a tremendous job, and we have lots of quality employees in our school district. You know, elephant in the room always when you get legislators together is two things, really, vouchers and the floating homestead exemption, right? Those things are elephants in the room when we talk about those things. But I will tell you, this is an area that we can come to some common ground. If we're able to look at this, what we're earning on the classified side of the house, because we're pretty good with our certified people. But if we can look at like the classified side of the house and some other things that we've talked about local 5-meal share and equalization, all that, I think we can come to some common grounds on those topics. But we've got to come to the table and brainstorm ways to improve in this area. The last one we want to talk about is when it comes to our primary babies. You've heard from our principal and teacher from one of our primary schools earlier. They do a tremendous job at each of our schools, but their hands are tied in some ways when it comes to discipline. You know, prior to this, we have policy JCD. It is our behavior policy, our code of conduct policy. We also have due process regulations that we must follow. Those are constitutional amendments that by being born in the United States, we're giving those rights. And those served us well for many, many years. And so this is an area where I believe we could also make some improvements, because educators need the ability to take swift action with behaviors. We've talked about mental health. Guys, it's real. I'll tell you right now. And it doesn't start in high school. It starts in pre-K. And our administrators' hands are tied in some ways when it comes to being able to protect the classroom and protect the teacher. And so we've got to look at some ways that we're handcuffing our administrators and dealing with behavior matters. And so we want to protect the learning environment for all students and ensure that students get connected to the support they have. So we don't have a problem with the MTSS. But the mandate of following those regulations outlined in this particular law, 20-2-742, is causing some burden on our administrators, and we really need to evaluate how we can improve in that one. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about our waivers. We are a Swiss district, and I want to first say thank you, legislators, for the opportunity to waive certain things, because our belief is that those closest to the situation are the experts. And no disrespect to anybody, but we believe we're the best equipped to run Houston County School District. We know our people, we know our faculty, our staffs, our students, we know everybody about it intimately, and we believe we're the best. So I want to say thank you for allowing us to have these waivers, and there are some other areas that, you know, maybe we can expand waivers. But I want to kind of go through what we have in these, and I'm not going to talk about every one of them, and quite honestly, we do not use every one of these. These are part of our Swiss waiver, and some of them we don't even use, but they're there if the need arose for us to do that. For example, we don't waive class size requirements. We work really hard to keep our class sizes at a good teacher-to-student ratio in Houston County. Some additional ones we have are shown on the screen here. Once again, do not use all these, but we have these, you know, in case they are needed. We definitely do not waive the salary schedule. We believe in paying our people well. Our teachers have hard jobs when they stand in front of kids on a daily basis and have to deal with the great supportive parents that they all have, right? And so they do a wonderful job, and we're greatly appreciative of the work they do, so we do not waive that. And a few other items here that we have in our waiver, but we don't waive. And one thing that one piece that we've talked about with some of our local delegation is the current K-8 mandate on banning cell phones. And that is not something that we were able to waive. A waiver was not included when that law was signed into, or that legislation was signed into law this year. But we do want to make sure that that's not expanded beyond K-8, and would like to revisit that and give that back to local control, because we believe in Houston County we had solid procedures when it comes to the cell phone rules, how teachers were supposed to handle those and how administrators handle those. We had solid policy that told parents what the expectation was, and we definitely don't want to see that expanded. I told you a while ago I have a 9th grader, right? I find comforting knowing that if something comes up, she can contact Daddy, and that's okay. But she knows if she gets caught with it, there's consequences with it too. And I'm okay with that. Once again, support and accountability. And so with those couple things there, we're getting ready to wrap up our part of the presentation. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Rogers, who's going to wrap us up.
Well, legislators, just want to thank you for giving us this time to, hopefully you heard some innovative ideas I'm very proud of this team, and just know that we're always thinking about innovation. And one last force I'd like to share with you guys is, with the passage of Senate Bill 233 and vouchers bills, now our school districts are truly competing against private schools and homeschool, religious schools. But I ask you this, do they have the same accountability measures as we do? Because now tax dollars are following those children to schools that are not held accountable like we are. So our hands are tied because we can't innovate like we would like to because of the testing that you heard about from Dr. Mayfield. However, we're graded on those ABCD, which is not what's best for students. And if a parent doesn't like it, all they got to do is take their voucher and go to a private school. Kids can have their cell phones at private schools. Kids can have their cell phones at home at religious schools, but they can't have them in our public schools. That didn't come from us. We don't support that. And the party in control is all in local control, so we ask, let's keep it about local control. Let's keep the experts making the decisions, and we ask that you cut the red tape, let us innovate, and let us truly compete with them on the same level. Because right now, we don't have equity. If we're going to send tax dollars there, then we need to be assessed the same way. Otherwise, tax dollars should not go to homeschool, private schools, or religious schools. But listen, thank you for your time. I know we have other speakers, so at this time, I will turn it over to Representative Blackman.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rogers. I don't know if we might have a few questions for your team. Y'all did a fantastic job. Thank you for touching on, what really are some tough subjects to discuss in a very, respectful and I think appropriate way. We've had those discussions privately, and it's good for those things to be out on the table. So exactly what we want to hear as a study committee as we move throughout the state and have some folks come and join us. But Dr. Brown, thank you so much for helping us put all of this together. Afraid I'll forget that at the end, but you've been a great host, as are you, Dr. Rogers, as always. And I know you're a new superintendent, but it's not as if you're new to this system or you're new to education. So been doing it quite a while. And Dr. Mayfield, I get to see him every Sunday. He's not only talented from an educational perspective, but he happens to have some musical talents that I know everybody else is familiar with. So, Ms. Brown, I didn't mention you. Thank you so much. Great presentation. We love this center. And Dr. Wiggins also, we didn't hear from you, but we know what you mean to this system and to the team. So is there anything else that I missed, Dr. Rogers? No? Were there any questions from the committee members or anything anybody'd like to? I know most of us will hang around probably afterwards for a little while too. So if y'all have questions of us or we have questions of you, maybe those can be addressed a little bit later. Otherwise, we will move on to the next step in the agenda, and I think it's Dr. Alligood. Julie, you here? Okay, still back there. I think we got you and Dr. Bullock and Dr. Hall are joining us, so we'll just turn the floor over to you. And I did want to say, Dr. Rogers, I wish we'd have met with you sooner. We could have named this thing the Cutting the Red Tape for Public Education Study Committee. I think that was a great idea.
Outstanding. I'll just go ahead and jump right in. I guess, about 2 weeks ago, Matt Cardozo reached out and he said, Julie, would you come and talk a little bit about administrative mandates? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do that. And so, of course, I was sharing some of my thoughts, with my 11-year-old. And she said, now, Mama, are you really sure you're going to talk about all that? So you're right about that partnership. These are sensitive things to talk about, and I do want to preface all that with the fact that we appreciate what you do in Georgia for our schools and for our students. We have a wonderful public school system, and it is getting better and better day by day. And a lot of that I know firsthand by our work in literacy this last year. So thank you so much for the work that you've been doing. I want to begin, because I'm an old English teacher, I'm going to start a little bit by just sharing a little quote by one of my favorites that I always taught, Atticus Finch. Some of you may remember Atticus Finch from a Southern novel, To Kill a Mockingbird. Atticus was trying to teach his little daughter something, and he said, listen, if you just learn a single trick, Scout, you'll get along a lot better with all kinds of folks. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb inside of his skin and walk around in it. And now you folks under the Gold Dome, you have a lot of folks' skin you have to climb in and walk around. You hear from special interest groups. You hear from folks all over the state. And education is just one area that you have a focus on, and we do appreciate that. We, too, as educators, have to think sometimes that it's not just our perspective. You know, tax-paying citizens are really interested in schools, and because everyone has been to school, they sometimes think that they know a lot about it, you know? And so we have to mitigate that a lot. But with mandates, it comes down to, a lot of times, we consider compliance. Mandates, laws, they're about compliance. And compliance is a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing to make everyone comply and move forward. But sometimes when we have so much compliance, we forget about the part about commitment. And to really move forward and to really progress in the state of Georgia, we've got to have a commitment. And so I think we've got to sometimes take a breath and get to that commitment part first. As a young principal, way back, I'm not even going to tell you the year because I'll be telling my age, but I've been doing this a little longer than Dr. Mayfield, just a little bit longer. And so when I became a young principal, I took over a failing school. Quite simply, we were at the bottom of the state. We were compared to the other side of the district across the river. And there were some, you know, we're giving you this job, Julie, but you better get the job done. I mean, this can't stay this way. And so we really started working hard, changing the culture, putting some things in place. And about that time, there was this little law, there was this little mandate called RTI. Anybody remember that? It's changed names a little bit. But I was so super excited as a young principal. I'm like, this is giving me some teeth here now. We are going to change this school. We are turning it around. And, you know, so we got a little mo going there, a little momentum going in the school, and so we're thinking, hey, we're going to turn some things around. And I went for my next principal's meeting, and the superintendent was just about to pieces about this little RTI law. And I thought, man, this is a great thing. And he said, Julie, it's an unfunded mandate. And so, you know, that's a whole different perspective. It was an unfunded mandate. And so I took that law and I nearly worked the teachers into oblivion. I mean, did we turn the school around? Oh, brother, we turned the school around. We went from being in the bottom quartile to the tippity top. Back when CRCT was the thing in primary school, we had those little soldiers taking those tests, and I mean, we were at the 99th percentile across the board. So we did. But I also almost ran all the teachers out the door. You know, did I learn a lot? Yes, I hope I did learn a lot. But we went straight to compliance. We had to stop. We had to take a breath. We had to believe. We had to realize that teachers cannot teach the entire every second that they are in the classroom. The principal, the only administrator in the building, could not run a small group math RTI session in the afternoon. We did have to take a breath, and we had to come back to that. Did some wonderful things come from that? All that compliance-driven work we did? Absolutely. But in the years following, when we took a breath and learned a little bit, some greater things came from that commitment. We had sustained change. And to this day, that is a very strong school doing some wonderful work. I'm a storyteller, as you can tell, and so I'm just the RESA director here. So you've heard from one of our districts here, Houston County, and I thought that we couldn't complete this picture, though, without hearing from the little guys, because Twiggs County is an entirely different district with different demographics, with a different finance place there because of their size and because of what's going on there. So I'm going to invite Dr. Bullard to come on up and share a little bit about what compliance and what mandates mean for our smaller school districts.
Good afternoon, everyone. To our two chairmen, to the members of the Education Subcommittee and the distinguished legislators. My name is Dr. Mac Bullard, and I serve as the superintendent of Twiggs County Public Schools, one of Georgia's small rural school systems. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you today about the importance of including school superintendents, especially those from smaller and rural counties, in new legislation that is being crafted and implemented. As superintendents, we are charged with carrying out the laws that you pass and ensuring that they translate into real opportunities for our students. That means that we see firsthand the financial, operational, and instructional impact of legislation at the ground level. While the intent of bills, and I'm going to use, for example, House Bill 538, the Georgia Early Literacy Act, that bill is good and deeply important. However, the way that these mandates play out in small school districts can be very different than those in larger ones. House Bill 538 requires that kindergarten through third grade schools adopt and implement a high-quality instructional materials aligned with the science of reading. It also requires teacher training and ongoing support to ensure that the materials are used effectively. That is, without question, a worthy and necessary goal. Every child in Georgia deserves a strong foundation in literacy. But I want to share with you the unintended financial challenges that rural districts face. The State Board of Education's approved high-quality instructional material programs are not free. In 2023-2024, Twiggs County spent $60,207 for a Georgia DOE-approved iReady reading and math curriculum for grades kindergarten through 8th. That cost provided digital access, hands-on consumable student books, teachers' editions, all aligned to the Georgia standards. But when House Bill 538 was implemented, we were required to purchase new materials. The approved McGraw-Hill Wonders program cost us an additional $48,359. But that only covered kindergarten through third grade. We could not afford to extend Wonders to grades 4 through 8 because of the price. On top of that, each professional learning session that Wonders cost $3,500, adding another layer of expense to an already stretched budget. This example shows how an unfunded mandate directly increases the financial burden of a small rural system. Beyond the curriculum price tag, we must also pay for substitute teachers when staff have to attend training during the school day. Stipends have to be paid when they're trained after school, and we lose precious instructional time with children when teachers are pulled away. Many districts, including ours, had already invested heavily in evidence-based methods such as Orton-Gillingham approach, which is a structured literacy program proven effective for students with dyslexia. However, when Orton-Gillingham was no longer approved on the Georgia's list, we were forced to retrain teachers on different programs, duplicating expenses, and taking teachers back to square one. High-quality instructional material adoption also requires technology upgrades, classroom resources, and sometimes even facility adjustments. These costs are real, but rarely accounted for in legislation. The challenges are compounded by the fact that Georgia's school funding mechanism, that has already been mentioned earlier this afternoon, the QBE formula, has not been fundamentally updated since the mid-'80s. Yet, in nearly 40 years, the cost of curriculum, technology, transportation, utilities, and basic operations all have risen dramatically. For small rural districts like mine, the dollars simply are not there to absorb unfunded mandates. Sparsity funding is a part of QBE, and it's designed to help districts with limited local tax revenue, but it has not kept pace with the need. Increasing sparsity funding would be a critical step in making sure that poor rural school districts can comply with these new mandates without harming other parts of our educational program. When unfunded mandates are passed down, something has to give. In Twiggs County, that often means sacrificing technology upgrades that keeps students competitive, extracurricular programs like fine arts, clubs, sports that keeps students connected to school, safety improvements or facility repairs that we know are needed, and competitive salaries to retain and attract strong teachers. Every dollar we redirect to cover an unfunded mandate is a dollar that we take away from another essential service. This is why it is critical that superintendents from rural areas be invited to the table before legislation is finalized. We can share the real numbers with you. What it will cost per student, what supports will be needed, and what trade-offs we will face if no additional funding is provided. Without this input, legislation that is well-intended can become just an unfunded mandate, forcing small school districts to choose between compliance and the very resources that we need to help our students thrive through commitment. Members of the legislature, rural schools matter. Our students are no less capable, no less deserving, and no less ambitious than students anywhere else in this state. But when legislation creates new requirements without adequate funding, it places rural schools in a position of doing more with less. And that ultimately impacts our children. I respectfully urge you to revisit and modernize the QBE funding formula to reflect today's educational cost. Increase sparsity funding to help small school districts meet requirements, and continue inviting and listening to the voices of superintendents across Georgia before finalizing legislation. Together, we can ensure that every bill that you pass not only has good intent, but also the resources needed to succeed in practice. Thank you again for your time and for your commitment to the children of Georgia.
Thank you, Dr. Bullard. Appreciate you being here today. I have a quick question on the side. Doctor, you can go ahead. I'll grab him. I was just going to grab him before he got back to his chair. Y'all can proceed.
All right, and I was just going to have Dr. O.J. Hall come on up, and while Dr. Hall's coming up, I was going to tell a sad story. Several times this over the last couple of weeks, we have had at the RESA people report in our leadership class, we just can't do this anymore. They call and say, I'm going to quit. And I said, oh, okay, well, you'll just join up, next year. They've got 3 years to get their Tier 1 certification. No, you don't understand. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this job anymore. And actually left the profession. 2 days ago, I was sitting at my desk, and an endorsement instructor comes running up, and she says, we've got a crisis. And I said, oh, my goodness, what happened? She said, one of my former students from a couple of years ago just called and said she walked out of her classroom because she just can't do it anymore. The stress and it's almost like we've got those little paper plates, the little cheap ones that we used to put the rattan thing under, It's almost like we're trying to serve roast beef and carrots and potatoes and everything on a little flimsy paper plate, and they're to the point where they've got so much going on. And so Dr. Hall is going to report a little bit more specifically we've heard the superintendent's perspective, and he's going to share a little bit more from that of a principal of middle high. Okay?
Good evening. As she said, I'm O.J. Hall. I'm currently the Associate Superintendent in Lawrence County Schools for Secondary Education. And I also do some consultative work as an adjunct professor with Middle Georgia RESA. And so I've been a principal for 5 years in my career. I'm a recovering high school principal. And I've also been a middle school principal, and I'm married to a kindergarten teacher. And so I get a wide range of all of it. The good news for you state legislators in here, and thank you for being here today. But when the mandates come down, my wife never points at y'all. She thinks it's me. I'm one of those at the district office that have sent all those requirements down. But I am going to talk about it at the principal level a little bit. Thank you to Houston County for hosting this great event and this great facility. And to echo some of the sentiments that they talked about, I'm going to talk a little bit about the equity that comes about with some of the mandates, such as the teacher evaluation system and how it relates to teacher morale. I can't tell you before I left the principalship, and even now in my current role and the leaders that I get to develop through Middle Georgia RESA, how many stories I get of our best teachers who have the proven results asking to leave out of teaching those subjects because the pressure and the stress and the accountability is so high on them compared to what they call their colleagues and counterparts who, quote unquote, don't have that pressure and stress. It's one of those unfortunate mandates, because I'm all about accountability at a high level at that. But it's one of those mandates that unfortunately creates a rift that oftentimes as leaders, we don't even realize is there amongst the staff, because when they look through their lens, they have a colleague next door who's earning what they're earning, paycheck is signed by the same person, but don't have the stress of a % of their evaluation coming from a standardized test. And so it creates this dynamic where some of our best teachers are looking to exit those positions. And sometimes they stay in the profession, and sometimes they don't. I think we have to find a way to come together to figure out a testing and accountability process, which I think local would best serve that, an evaluative process that provides an equitable opportunity to all. Something else that we face at the building level with building level leaders, and Dr. Bullock talked about this from a rural area, and this goes right back to the QBE funding. The opportunities that we've seen expanded are plentiful, and we're thankful for that. And I'm speaking in terms of things such as CTA Plus, the opportunities that high school students, for example, have to earn more credits and to get a better feel for what they're going to do to be college and or career ready. The issue with that, though, when you're forced to use so much funding to help make up for what QBE does not provide. In our district, the HMQI product was around $1 million because we're a little bit larger. It causes us not to have enough teachers to offer enough segments to even offer students the opportunities that are afforded to us through CTAE Plus and other arenas. And so how does that impact our principals? They get hit in the community with, Well, my friend lives in Atlanta, and they attend this high school, and their students have the opportunity to take these courses. My kids live in the metro area, and they get the opportunity to start learning a foreign language in elementary school. And so then it creates a snowball in our rural areas, because then you start to get the 22 to the 25 to the 30-year-olds that says, well, I'm not going to move back here. I'm not going to live here because I don't feel like I can raise a family here, and my child has equitable footing in this global economy. Well, that trickles down because then we have less population, we have less people, we're collecting less property taxes, we're collecting less SPLOST, and it just snowballs. I 100% do think it is unintended. We have mandates that obviously come from the heart. They come from the purpose of doing what's best for kids, but these are the unintended consequences that we see. To shift a little bit to what my elementary principals are starting to experience back home, and this may not be everywhere, but I would talk about in my hometown in Lawrence County, and I talked about the pressure that the high school teachers feel on the testing end when their colleagues across the hallway don't have it. Well, what we've done at the elementary level with the amount of testing, and from what I've been told, a lot of that testing sometimes is individualized testing in the younger grade levels, where a teacher is literally testing one student at a time trying to manage the class. We have seen a shift where what has come down at our elementary schools has been so heavy, and this is probably going to be a shocking statistic to some, but the biggest shift we've seen in our district are our elementary teachers going to the secondary level to teach. And we know that's problematic because the foundation, if we're going to really solve this problem with literacy in Georgia, starts at the early level. So we can't have our well-trained, highly qualified educators leaving our most vulnerable population because the workload is just so demanding. And so at first I just kind of thought it was a phase, so I sat back and I watched, and I finally one day, because I knew if I asked my wife, I better be ready to answer and hear her answer. And so I asked her, I said, what is it really like? Because, in leadership, there's complaining, but then there's complaining. And sometimes you have to sift out the two. And she said, so a typical day for me as a kindergarten teacher involves going into the classroom. I teach, we go through our routines, we go through our procedures, we do what we do. If we're testing that day, I may be testing one student while my para is working with the others. God forbid what's happening with the first grade, second grade teachers who may or may not have a para depending on what district they're in. She said, then we'll get about a 45 to 48 minute, quote unquote, planning by the time it's said and done, because of course, it's not like the high school where they're ringing on the bell, sending them to class. They're walking on whatever square they're gonna walk on. And she says, I'll end up with about a 47 to 48 minute planning period that's probably going to involve some type of training around the science of reading, which is to be expected. We have to be trained. We have to be highly trained professionals. That's what they do. She said, but then on day number 2 out of the 5-day week, I'm probably going to be looking at the data from the one-on-one testing that we've been using, trying to make the best informed decisions. So she said, out of a 5-day week, I may truly have about 40 minutes total in that week to actually work on classroom items to keep from bringing them home. Because the man in me questioned her level of efficiency when I saw so much work being brought home. And so she explained it to me, and she said, and then because they're kindergartners, we don't ring the bell and let them go to lunch like y'all do at the high school, and administrators serve on duty or either teachers on a rotation. I sit down in the lunchroom with all 20 of them every single day for 180 days. She said, and then when the bell rings, they don't go to the school bus like your high schoolers do. We walk them to the bus, and we stay there until it's time to leave. I said, well, what time do you get off? She says 3:30, but the buses don't pull off until 3:40. That's what's creating the dynamic of what should be probably our most precious and prized area of student learning and teaching, and now they're starting to shift up to the high school. Recently, when I was at Summer Gale within the last year or two, one of the slides from PSC showed what area had the highest shortage of educators, and it blew my mind that it was early childhood. And that's when I started to see what I viewed as a disconnect as the connection of why this is taking place. And so I think what we have to do is sit down and figure out, because I'm all about accountability. I'm all about we have to be trained. That's what makes us professionals. But I do think we have to find a way to do it in a way that our academic return on investment is not negative. Because the way we're doing it right now is we're spending $1 million in curriculum that's highly effective and been approved. We're spending thousands of dollars for training. And the reason I say $1,000 of training, I've heard someone say that planning time is probably the most expensive time in a building during the day. But then we're not even left with the product that we've trained and that we purchased the program to use because they've left and gone on to something else. And so I think we got to figure out how to treat these complexities in a manner that allows us to be highly effective, highly trained, but yet equitable and humane so that we can get these students the services that they need. Finally, I'll close with what I typically hear from my principals and the ones that I work with is they too believe in accountability. But we have to have accountability systems, once again, is this word that's equitable and fair. Currently, the accountability system that we have in place that does use standardized testing and that the high school uses graduation rates creates systems in schools that are listed as the bottom 20%. And once again, I firmly believe in high accountability, and I've been blessed to turn 2 schools around and get them off of lists such as failure lists. But we have a dynamic where we're looking at the bottom 20% of schools all lumped together, elementary, middle, and high school. Well, if you don't understand anything about CCRPI, high school has this part that's called a graduation rate. Middle and elementary don't. Once again, not equitable. Also, when you look at the variables that go into a graduation rate, and I want to be careful how I say this because it is not in a format of knocking what anybody does, but I will say this. When we looked at that list, we saw a school that was on the failure list whose student achievement, if we're going to look at those test scores, were here. There were schools that were literally down here at 20 and 30 points difference between those schools, and they're on a failure list because that school has a 99% graduation rate and less than 50% of the kids are reading on grade level. And so what that creates is a trust problem in the accountability. It's not that people do not want to be held accountable. You typically don't get far in education, coaching, sports, if you don't like being held accountable, and you don't get very far if you're not competitive. So quietly, we welcome a lot of it. But we do want it to be equitable, we do want it to be consistent, we do want it to be fair, and we want it to be projected in a way that people can believe in and buy in. But it's very hard for principals to buy in and even sell to their staff an accountability system that says your students are performing here, but because we're not knocking out all the zeros for work that's not turned in, your graduation rate dropped you here. It's hard for our principals to get staff and community to buy into a system that says you can have a 99% graduation rate and be considered a good school, but less than 40% of your kids are reading on grade level. And so we want accountability, we believe in accountability, but we have to figure out a way to figure out the complexity of making this equitable so that we don't have the lack of trust that we have in accountability, and as it relates to QBE and funding, so that we have a system that does not create 2 Georgias, but 1 Georgia working towards one goal, and that is to be the greatest educational entity in the United States and beyond. Thank you for your time. Once again, thank you to Houston County for hosting this great event.
Thanks to Dr. Bullard and Dr. Hall for echoing what we kind of wanted to talk about today as those unintended consequences of even the best intended administrative mandates. Almost 45% of teachers are leaving in the first 5 years. 45%. And I think some of the latest data said over 51 superintendents turned over last year. That's huge. Principals leaving every day, and it's the greatest job on earth, so I'm not really sure why that is. But I want to echo in our closing something that Dr. Mayfield said, and that is the partnership. Working together, we think that we can help maybe make some of these good mandates even better, and maybe revising some of those that our friends in Houston County talked about. And I'll leave you, of course, with a little stanza of poetry, ever the English teacher, by Henry David Thoreau. 2 sturdy oaks, I mean, which side by side withstands the winter's storm, in spite of wind and tide, grow up the meadow's pride, for both are strong. Above they barely touch, but undermined down to their deepest source, admiring you shall find their roots are intertwined inseparably. I hope that moving forward we can all be intertwined inseparably to build a better Georgia, one that's stronger for all of our students and all of our teachers so that we can all thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alligood. I really appreciate it. Dr. Hall, Dr. Bullard, once again, thank you very much. Important information for us to hear and know. Thank you. Let's see. Let's keep us on. Is Margaret here? Where's? Yes. Okay. Cicerelli. Did I say that right? Ciccarelli. I'm sorry. I should know better. You. Absolutely. You and Ms. Flesher are welcome to do that together, and you've got some numbers for us.
We do. We have some survey information.
That's good. Well, I've asked for some grace on this committee because I'm a numbers person. I'm not really in the education lane. So you're talking numbers, that's more my speed. I appreciate that.
Sorry, I'm trying to find it.
And since we've got just a quick break, I know GSSA and DOE, Matt, you're here. Rob? And then, of course, we have Justin, Stephanie, Josh, yeah, with our School Boards Association. So if y'all have any comments at any point, we'll probably have some time at the end. Just, we hope that you will.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Cindy Flesher, and I am a recent retiree from the Houston County School District. In the last 4.5 years, I completed 31 years in K-12 education. And since then, I retired January 31st, and on February 1st, went to work for the Georgia Association of Educational Leaders as the Professional Learning Coordinator for Gale.
So pleased to be presenting with you, Cindy. I'm Margaret Ciccarelli from PAGE, the Professional Association of Georgia Educators. A little bit about PAGE. We have about 93,000 educators statewide, most of whom are classroom teachers, but we also have administrators, both at the building and district level, and support staff, retired educators, and a lot of teachers of the future who are enrolled in colleges of education or future Georgia Educator chapters in their public schools and their high schools. So we wanted to share a little bit of survey data with y'all today, and I really took to heart that Twin Oaks Thoreau metaphor that was just shared, because I'd like to share some PAGE survey data about teacher views on administrators and why administrators are important and why protecting that core relationship in terms of the other duties and administrative duties that administrators are given that may detract from their ability to support and prioritize that relationship with classroom teachers. So starting with that, we have a 2024 PAGE workforce survey of almost 4,000 educators. We missed a few districts, but we got most of them. And when we asked principals about the importance of their administrators, the great news is that most of them agree that their administrators are supportive. We think this is great. And we know that this is important because multiple lines of research indicate that teachers who feel supported stay in the profession. And so when we're talking about who is serving students in the classroom and how we reduce Georgia's teacher shortage, teachers' relationships with their principals is a big piece of that. So in terms of staffing, this really indicates how delves into how teachers feel about the supportiveness of their building leader, When they feel supported, they stay, but when they don't, they leave. leading to Georgia's over 5,000, currently we have more than 5,000 teacher vacancies in the state of Georgia, so that's important context. Administrative support is linked to teacher job satisfaction. Only 4% of teachers with supportive administrators are dissatisfied in their jobs. So this is one of the #1 indicators. Yes, we have also asked about how they feel about salaries. I would echo some of the themes about student behavior and support and addressing that being another main reason that educators link to job satisfaction. But when educators don't feel supported by their administrator, because in large part their administrator may be busy addressing other compliance issues, teachers are unhappy in their jobs. We see similar numbers with workload. Only 4% of teachers with supportive administrators are dissatisfied. But before I roll forward, I wanted to explain some additional survey data that we have collected. And so that was 2024 data that I showed first. We're moving on to 2025 data that was collected specifically for this committee and themes from that. This was requested at the Summer Gale Conference, and then we collected additional data from PAGE members and from Gale affiliate members. So again, this is going to be mostly classroom teachers and school administrators, with more school administrators responding about to the specific question of administrative mandates and what should be addressed. So we're going to share some themes from our survey data, and Cindy is going to help me with some of that as well. But let's talk about time and professional autonomy first, because a lot of teachers and administrators weighed in on this question. And I think you've already heard that refrain from many of the speakers today. There's been reference to several great pieces of legislation. The Literacy Act, our school safety bill. Several of y'all were sponsors of this important and supported legislation. Supported in large part by not only our organization, all the other organizations here, and from educators and constituents out in the state of Georgia. But complying with these bills takes time, and it highlights the need for additional support for planning time for educators. Educators need more time to plan their instructional lessons, but also to ensure that they are ready to implement the mandates that are importantly passed by legislators. And Cindy, I think, is going to talk about our next piece. And while she's getting that teed up to the next slide, we also wanted to call attention to this piece that we have handed out to members of the committee. And I think we have a few additional ones if y'all are interested. This is a list, non-exhaustive list, and in fact it hasn't been updated since the early aughts, of mandates that actually schools nationwide are tasked with complying with. There are many important things on this list. And we also know that the federal government is one actor, and really outside the frame of reference of the comments that we're discussing today. We're talking about state mandates because those are the mandates we can control. But federal mandates do impact the availability of schools to comply with state mandates and even local priorities. So it's important to understand the national context and the federal context and the significant compliance burden that schools have when complying with federal mandates. Sydney?
Absolutely. As you're looking through that list, I was looking through it last week when we were thinking about bringing it. It's like, okay, what could we cut? And it's like, Well, no, we couldn't cut that. No, we can't cut that. All of this is important. But someone at the school district or number of people at each school district and within each school has to be responsible for implementing those things. And then when we think about those on top of state mandates and then sometimes district mandates that we have, that just kind of just builds upon the plate of educators without taking anything off. So the next theme that came out of the data that was collected was to streamline data and record-keeping requirements. We're not real sure exactly which ones they're talking about, but Margaret and I would love to, if you guys would like for us to do any other more specific or refined studies or surveys with our educators in the state, whether it's teachers or just administrators or whomever, we would be glad to do that and compile that information for you. But the biggest thing is that educators at all levels and in all roles feel like they spend an excessive time on duplicate reporting requirements just for different agencies. And I don't know if there's a way, but could they come together and make it more streamlined or sharing of information so that it's not so much work on the educators. The next theme that kind of came out was just paperwork and compliance relief. As a principal, well, my whole time in education, I'd say if you talk to any teacher, they would say to you probably, if I could just go in there and just teach, I'd be okay. Especially ones that are thinking about leaving the profession. They're the ones that are like, I'm leaving. I've got to do this, this, and this, and none of those things have anything to do with student achievement and affecting those students. So as we get towards the end of our slides, we'll kind of talk about some suggestions or recommendations that we have as you're thinking about new legislation or going back and making any adjustments with what's out there. But the big concern or the critical concern is the erosion of being able to focus on instructional time because of the excessive compliance demands. And that's for administrators and for teachers. So some suggestions would be to cut some of that excessive documentation requirements, simplify some of the procedures, and then balancing new mandates by removing outdated or redundant requirements.
Thanks, Cindy. And we'll talk a little bit about those outdated or duplicative requirements in a minute. I'm glad that y'all mentioned Houston leadership, and y'all have done such a great job hosting and presenting today. Really, thank you so much, Class Act. I'm glad you brought up the issue of waivers because we really can't have this discussion about compliance and administrative burden without talking about those. I think y'all are right to highlight the ones that you're taking advantage of locally, the ones that you could but you choose not to, and why you do that. Because when we speak with teachers and with parents across the state, they're curious about those and want to know more about what their districts are doing with their waivers and why. So articulating what is being waived and the purpose of that and how that leads to student achievement is critical. I would be remiss if I also didn't talk about planning time as part of that, because it is difficult for some districts to provide planning time and comply with planning mandates for their staff. And as a result, planning time rules are often waived. One of the factors there, and we have surveyed on this, and there are multiple factors that contribute to the loss of planning time, but one of them is funding. You wisely talked about QBE and updates to QBE. It's a solid formula, but it predates many of the younger folks in this room. And it has not been updated since that time. And one of the things that has not been updated is the funding for substitute teachers, which is still $18 and some cents a day for 10 days per teacher per district. In most metro districts, when we did a study 2 years ago, it cost more to hire a substitute for 1 day than a local district receives from the state per teacher per year. Ensuring that we have adequate funding for substitutes is an important piece to providing that planning time and to making sure that valued state mandates are implemented with fidelity and planning at the local level. Cindy?
And you heard Margaret mention earlier about the importance of school administrators. The Wallace Foundation is a reputable foundation that does lots of research and provides research, and they have research that says that school leadership is second only to the teacher in its impact on student learning outcomes. And we know that if you have a great principal who is setting up a positive school culture, supporting teachers and fostering collaboration, being strategic and managing their resources that they have, they can lead a great school. But we do have some unintended consequences of our current leadership pay rule, and it causes administrative burnout and pipeline shortage. And that is when teachers get a degree, a master's degree or a specialist degree or a doctoral degree in leadership, unless they're in a leadership role, they do not get that pay. And so what that results in is typically they will get a job as an assistant principal or principal, and then they go through the Tier 1 certification through one of our local RESAs. And Julie was talking about earlier about one who just said, I quit. I'm leaving the profession. It's too much. It's overwhelming. So the thought of me, if I were thinking back going into administration, if I had to take classes to learn how to be a better leader and develop those skills while I was in that first year as an assistant principal, I wouldn't have made it either, I don't think. I had the training and I was ready, or thought I was ready, and got in there, and I talked to my friend who had been in AP for a while, and she was like, don't worry. The first year, you feel like you're underwater and you need an air tank. The second year, you'll bob up for air every now and then. The third year, you'll be able to tread water. And that was how it was for me. But I just imagine these people who are having to go back through Tier 1 certification after they get that job, and they are trying to do both of those things at the same time, and it just makes it be very overwhelming for them. And then, and right now the way it is, if they get a leadership degree, they won't get the raise, and so the current system encourages teachers to leave the classroom, good teachers to leave the classroom, so that they can get paid for that advanced degree if they want to be a leader. So the bottom line is, what we would hope is that they get paid for the degree earned, not just the position held, because together we can all impact student achievement even more if we all have some leadership strengths and training to do that with.
Thanks, Cindy. And for y'all's consideration as we leave you, and then we'll take any questions that the chair would like. Food for thought about any new piece of education legislation. What is the cost? Both at the state and the local level. And we know that a fiscal note at the state level is important, and we require those in many cases, but it doesn't give us an idea of a local implementation cost, which is another important consideration that multiple speakers have mentioned today. How does the legislation support schools' core mission of providing students with a high-quality academic instruction and a safe environment? We've referenced multiple critical bills today that certainly meet that how, but we should be asking it about all pieces of education legislation. Which educators specifically will be tasked with implementation and compliance? Is this a building level administrator? Is this a district level leader? Is this a classroom teacher? Is it a team approach with all of those, or maybe with some support staff? I want to mention also that from the teacher perspective, it is an old refrain, I'm sure that many of y'all have heard in this room, that central offices are full of administrative bloat. But when we pass complex legislation that has a significant compliance burden, we require that of districts. So we need to be careful about that refrain when we are contributing to that escalation of central office staff. When during the school day will administrators, teachers, and students comply with the mandates of legislation? And most importantly, instead of what? As Jamie Ballmer points out when he outlined these mandates, while we've requested and required a lot of public schools in the last century, we haven't added time to the school day. And so in lieu of adding more hours into everybody's day, what are we going to take away, and how do we reprioritize when we develop new and important priorities for schools? Regarding existing legislation, which we're so glad y'all are reviewing now, and we hope you routinely do, does it meet its intended, the original intention? And is it still meeting our policy goals? Will we consider and have the courage to repeal outdated mandates, or maybe modify them, These are important questions that y'all as policymakers are considering, and we are grateful to be a part of it. As Cindy mentioned, if there are very specific measures that you would like us to survey our members on, and Gale members as well, to see how they would feel about repeal, we're certainly open to doing that. Educators aren't always going to agree. There's a disagreement in this room over the cell phone ban, for instance. We've heard some good reason why districts may be, or why this district might have concern about it. Statewide data shows so far that some educators may support it, but we've commissioned a study with Georgia Southern College of Education to obtain more information about why local districts and educators might have some concern and what parts of it they do support. Because I think we're headed in the right direction with these, but understanding how to have a nuanced conversation about policy goals with the appropriate amount of local flexibility to implement in a way that local communities see fit is an important part of any discussion about these, about cell phones or any other education legislation. Thank you for the opportunity, and we also appreciate the opportunity to present a special award to a special guest a little later in the program. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you both. Quick question, real quick. Are you saying you're seeing more and more legislation come across that waives the mandate waiver, I guess? Is that what you're?
Yes. I mean, we definitely are, I'm guilty of it as well. When we're working with legislative counsel or policymakers to write legislation, it's pretty much standard now that if we think it's important enough to bring the legislation, we're going to ask for a provision that makes it non-waivable.
Okay.
And Michael brought that up in our first conversation, I think, as well as the discussion about even the waiver terminology. Are we being consistent with that? And are there parts of Title 20 that we just literally need to change, not the policy, but the terminology to make sure it's consistent?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee members at this time? Stephanie, this is not near as tall as you. Oh. It's exhausting to look at, frankly. Did we miss anything? Did anybody have anything? Matt, did you know?
Nothing in particular. I think as we continue to talk through some of these things, details, particulars, as Margaret just mentioned there, start talking about things that we actually might want to consider doing away with. That's where it's gonna. I think we're really gonna start to see whether it's local, state, federal, and then what we can do about it.
Well, thank you. And I don't mean to try to speak for anybody on the study committee here, but this is a very genuine effort, and I appreciate, what y'all have brought so far to the table, and how professional and respectful the conversation is. But knowing that we're going to have some tough conversations here. I mean, it's not easy. Again, I think nobody better understands that than the gentleman to my right, Chairman Irwin, and I have, we have full confidence in him as education chair, and I appreciate him signing on to this study committee so that we can take a little bit more time to review this. Did you have a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentations we've gotten. This information is very important, committee members, to be listening to, as these are the practitioners in the room that are dealing with it on a daily basis. I want to, if I can, pick on my friend, the superintendent of Houston County, and I'm going to address a couple of questions to you, Ricky, if that's all right. With our committee goals, since we have a few of the House committee members here in education, safety is our #1 priority. It would be important for me and our committee to know the red tape that you deal with safety. I know why don't you come up there where everybody can hear you, because this is something that is definitely that Holt Persinger has spent a lot of time with, that our committee is not going to stop paying attention to, and whatever we can do to improve the safety in schools, we'll do it. But I'd like to hear from you, being a large school system, and I believe you said the 12th largest, what red tape do you run into on safety?
Well, and I'd love, while I'm talking, for my team to be brainstorming here, because actually safety is an area that I'm very proud of what the state's done, what you guys have done. And you have provided the money. I mean, yes, you provided the expectation, but in my opinion, it was not an unfunded mandate. You guys have done a good job funding the safety initiatives. What I love that was I think it was in Bonnie Brown's, is we have hardened the schools, but now we need to be proactive and soften the schools. And the best way we can do that is with our mental health therapist. We need to begin, if y'all can come up with the funding to do 1 per high school this year, we need to start at the high school level, because what the counselors and administrators are dealing with is discipline's not going to solve it. And if we could hire 1 mental health therapist per high school, and then with the long-term goal of our middle schools need them the next year, that would help complete. We're sitting in the Lindsay Student Support Center is about the whole child. That would complete the whole safety aspect. We feel good about our badges. We feel good about our, all those hardened aspects. But the problem is the kids, a lot of them are dealing with issues when they walk in. And my wife switched to being a counselor this year, and she's having trouble getting to testing or helping students with careers because of the mental health needs that the kids are bringing to her. And that's always going to be the #1 priority over the other issues. So if we can get some more mental health issues, or mental health support, we're proud of what you guys have done from a safety angle. Does my team agree?
One thing I would mention on that is,
yeah,
the new legislation has a component to it, I don't know the exact language, of having the local law enforcement approve the plans. We have a great partnership with ours, but I could see where a law enforcement officer is going to have a different perspective on a certain design. We're educational people. We want collaborative spaces and all that. And we do have a great collaborative environment with our local law enforcement, but that's one piece I think maybe some clarity on what that means and what that looks like would be helpful. As you've heard, we're in the design phase for a new STEM academy. And so what does that look like? What are we supposed to do when we talk about approval of the local law enforcement agency? And who is that? We have multiple law enforcement agencies here in Houston County. Is there one that we're supposed to check with? Just some guidance on that may be helpful.
Okay. Stay up there, Rick, if you would, too, for another question, if you allow me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And let me pose that question to Mac and OJ in the room also, if they're still here. Ed leave, okay. But I'd love to hear from them on the red tape and safety, as we're going to continue to look at crafting legislation around school safety. Let's talk about waivers for a minute.
Okay.
you waive some things. We've seen that in Houston. What would you say is the most impactful waiver you have to learning?
I know definitely one would be class sizes, because under the old rule, if you grew just one above, you had to get another teacher, which is not the best way to spend $100,000. We want lower class sizes in Houston County. However, having the ability to waive it just gives us that flexibility we need to balance the needs of the classroom, the teacher, and the number of students in there. Can my team think of anything else?
Okay. Well, know that I'm going to take this opportunity of asking you that question, Mr. Superintendent, because this topic of educating our young folks is very broad, and changing what we have been working on for over 100 years to educate the people in this state the way we do. It could be a task that we could not accomplish in our lifetime to make the changes that we would need to. However, we could get to the most impactful changes. And that's where that question comes from on these mandates. Where do we begin? And one that seems to surface is look at these waivers and why we're waiving them. And we're waiving it because it's in the way to learning. And in some cases, it could be financial. And obviously, for the hiring another teacher, you could tie some of that financial to that. But I would ask the committee members to pay attention to that we can get too broad here. I think I stated that last time. I'll state it this time. So there's going to be a point in time, Mr. Chairman, where we've got to keep asking those questions and hit the top couple or few, and then go attack them at this coming session, and then we've got another session coming up right after that in 2 years. So, thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
May I add one more comment?
Yes, sir.
And I know our hands are tied a little bit on assessment data, how much, the number of assessments, but our team was talking about that's really the thing that is hurting us the most, is the assessment. So if there's anything we can do, let's make sure the number of tests is at the minimum that the federal law allows. What flexibility do we have for innovation? When a child can write a speech and give a speech, that is so much more important than an ABCD test. Me being able to stand up here right now and talk to you guys is such a more important skill than what we're assessing a lot of these children. So we've got to move in that way, because we can innovate more as teachers and leaders if our children are assessed how they'll use it in their future careers, instead of sitting down with a multiple choice test. So anything we can do, let's make sure we have the bare minimum from the federal government. And then when we are doing that minimum, is there any way to have a growth measure, instead of that one time a year that makes, Dr. Brown's kids sick, may they be assessed, in November, December, and then assess them again in May. And let's look at the growth that his children made, instead of those 3 days being the end all. I mean, my wife is testing students right now, and one came in sleeping. That test does not show what he knows. But he may be able to stand up. His personality was great and woo an audience. But we have no idea. And that high school is being evaluated that way. So we have got to, that is at the core issue of education. If we can fix that, there's no telling what our teachers and leaders can do to innovate and make school more like where the real world that those children are going to step into after they graduate with that high school diploma.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Ricky.
Thank you. Anybody else? Representative Horner?
Thank you, Chairman. I can get this a little closer. I actually have one more question for the superintendent. Sorry, you just sat down. My school system talks about this all the time, and I agree completely with Chairman Irwin that we need to keep it focused on what is at the top and what trickles down. And on that note, can you speak a little bit, I hear this every budget meeting on my school system, can you speak a little bit to the state mandates on employer matches for administrators, for SHBP?
The state mandate on what now? I'm sorry.
On employer matches for like all our employees that you hire, every time you hire an employee, how much does the state kind of mandate your employer match to see how much it would cost or how it would affect your school system? We talked a little bit about it at lunch.
I'm not
but
fully understanding the question. I apologize.
Oh, no, you're good. Like if you hire an employee, like state health benefit program,
Okay,
TRS,
and I do know financially we're hurt very badly on the classified health because we're paying 100% of all classified members. That has been a major hit. We're blessed in Houston that we've been able to absorb it. However, I do have concerns with some of the other districts we heard from earlier. And right now you hear a lot about, millage rate and cutting taxes, but at the end of the day, there's been so much burden placed on school districts. As much as we would love to roll millage back and do that, at the end of the day, we've got to give health benefits to our classified staff, health benefits to our certified. And so our hands are tied to do what we would like to do for the community. So yes, definitely any help we can do with classified health care, because bus drivers, custodians, med techs, they're essential to the success of our school district. Also, we've noticed through the years that when a pay raise is coming out, it's typically for teachers. What about all of our employees? Houston County, we've been very devoted that if the governor gives a 1% raise, we give it to all. If he gave a $2,000, we turned it into 1% and gave it to all. But not all districts can do that. We heard from our friend from Twiggs County. They may not have that. So I think as legislators, if y'all can go back and just remember the importance of all, and it takes all of us to run the school district, that would really help us. And I hope I was able to answer your question. Thank you.
I don't see anybody else, but I do think since we talked a good bit about school safety, Representative Persinger, just again, thank you for tremendous amount of work putting that legislation together and getting it passed. If we don't have anything else for the good of the order, if y'all would just be seated, stay seated for just a minute. We're going to go ahead and adjourn, but we have a special presentation at the end here. Thank you, everybody, all of the presenters. Thank you again for hosting us, Houston County Schools, Dr. Rogers, you and your team. Thanks to all the legislators for making the trip down. It's good to see everybody. And we look forward to the next one. Representative Persinger, are we going to be up in your neck of the woods, I think, at the end of next month? 29th of September. So pencil that in and we'll get more information to come. Thank you for hosting us up there. Look forward to the next one. With that,